Naked Shamanism. Welcome to With Insights Radio. I'm your host, Iggy Garcia. I will take you on a journey across the universe through shamanism, metaphysical, and holistic. So sit back and relax and enjoy the show. Welcome, everybody, to With Insights Radio. I'm Iggy Garcia. This is Iggy Garcia Live. And I want to welcome everybody to my show. And today my special guest is Jennifer Whitacre. She's a friend of mine, and we work on some things together. She's also learning some shamanic practices from me. And so we have a little connection in that department. We'll bring her on here in a minute so she can share her knowledge with us and her insight and all of the beautiful things that she does and she brings to our community. If you don't know her, you will get to know her tonight. And you will be pretty excited. And hopefully you'll be able to maybe kind of see another side of our community that you probably don't see. But like we do on all our shows, we light a candle and we light some sage. And today I'm going to actually use a little bit of agua florida, a little Florida water. I'm feeling a little bit, I don't know. It's just one of the things, there's a lot of energies right now. And it's just kind of flowing. So I'm just going to cool myself off a little bit. Just kind of getting that rhythm. Just feel a little better. It smells really good. So I want to light a candle, this ancestral candle that we do before every show. I want to give thanks to our ancestors and honor them. And ask for guidance today, because right now we probably need a little bit of guidance from our guides and people who are our helpers on the other side. Not all of them necessarily are helpers, but there are some who do cross in that veil and they give us information and they help us. It's really what you believe, where you resonate. And so this candle is to kind of just hold that space for us. Give thanks to my mom and dad for all the stuff that they passed on down to me and my brothers and sisters, and to my kids and my family. I'm going to light a candle. There's lit, and we're going to go with a little bit of sage in Yerba Santa. Light that up today and just kind of build the energy. Just taking that smoke into our space, into our aura, into that feeling, that move that congested energy out of our way, make room for positive and loving light to come through us, sending the smoke to the sky, into the Earth Mother. Oh. All right, everybody. Since our last show on Wednesday, we had Blue Hawks visited me and was here and sharing his knowledge. He's one of my teachers, and it was good to have him on, get a different perspective, and kind of talk about, the Native American view on things and shamanic things. He's one of my teachers, and so it was really nice to have him join me. But today we're gonna move down the road here, and we're gonna be talking about trauma work and different things that kind of right now is right up the alley of my friend here, Jennifer, where she's going to give us some insight on some things, and we're going to chat, and we're going to just kind of have an open forum and just kind of debate some things, and maybe we'll agree on some things and maybe we'll disagree on some things, but whatever, we'll find common ground somewhere in between, because that's usually how it works. So I'm going to unmute her and I'm going to welcome her to the show. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Hi, Iggy. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you. It's good to be here.
It's good to be here. Hey, very, very good. Yeah. So what's going on with you? Tell us a little bit. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you, and then you can tell us what's going on.
Okay. Well, my name's Jennifer Whitacre. I live, work, and play in Columbus, Ohio, Worthington. I'm a trauma specialist, and when I say that, I focus specifically on developmental and intergenerational issues, which those are the issues that we carry throughout our life, and they're often really subtle. So we write off the effects of developmental and intergenerational issues as behavioral quirks or personality traits, or, oh, that's just who she is, or he does that sometimes. And so we just excuse those bad behaviors. And So that's the type of stuff I work with, the subtle, sneaky stuff.
The subtle, sneaky stuff. I
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
subtle and sneaky. And I also get into shadow work.
Okay.
Yeah, so doing that deep dive into the subconscious.
So tell me a little bit about shadow work. I'm curious about that. I know we talked a
Hmm.
little bit, but for our listeners,
Yeah.
just to kind of bring them up to speed a little bit.
Yeah. Well, shadow work is really anything that the shadow is anything that you try to hide from other people. Anything that, brings up those little twinges of shame, like, oh my gosh, I can't let somebody find out that, I do this thing or that I love this thing because then they're going to
Mm-hmm.
judge me, or I can't. So that's shadow work. And a lot of times when people live in the shadow, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak, their gifts and talents come out in harmful and abusive ways, maladaptive ways that don't serve the person or anyone around them. So a lot of times, whenever we get into the shadow work, that stuff that we're trying to hide from the rest of the world is where our gifts are. Carl Jung said the shadow is 90% pure gold because that's where our gifts and talents are. But in order to fit in with the world around us, we hide that from the rest of the world
Interesting.
and try to compromise who we are in order to fit in with mainstream society.
Okay. So there's a lot there.
There's
There's
a
a lot
lot
there.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot
And
there.
that's
And
just a
so
real,
a lot of it's working with the implicit mind and trying to make the subconscious conscious.
nice.
Yeah.
Very good.
Hmm.
So speaking of shadows, there's
Hmm.
obviously a lot of shadows right now in the
Hmm.
situations that we're dealing with
Yeah.
here
Hmm.
in the world. So what do you think? What's your take on what's going on here?
Um,
Because
I
everyone has
think,
opinions.
oh, I know everybody has opinions, and uh, opinions and assholes, we all have them, right?
Here you
So
go.
I don't know that mine matters any more than anyone else's.
It may matter to someone.
Yeah, I have been saying all along, like even before we were on lockdown, whenever this was still overseas and really hadn't hit the States yet,
Hmm.
that there's something almost divine or karmic about this virus.
Okay.
Um, I don't believe it was created in a lab. I
Okay.
just don't. Now, maybe it escaped from a lab because of human error. I know just going to the grocery store, it is a learning curve to go to the store and wear a mask and not touch things
Hmm.
and not touch your face or not like it's a learning curve. And I don't know many people, if you're not in healthcare, who can just put a mask on and go about your day as if it's not there and automatically
Right.
not touch your face or do everything exactly right. So I can see how somebody could, like a virus that's invisible could accidentally get out of one of these facilities, especially if the funding was not there.
Hmm.
Because as soon as funding is there, then people get a little bit lax in what's happening. And so that's a thing. I So I also study body language. So I
Okay.
do, I've been on some webinars with people. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not like classified or anything crazy like that, but
Hmm.
sometimes people with classified clearances, for example, will come on and do like little webinars. I follow the Spy Museum at the Smithsonian. And so
Okay.
they're doing little fun free webinars. And so just through stuff like that, um, people from the intelligence community will come on and say, like anytime there's a facility like this and the funding goes down or it's in a country where they don't have adequate funding, that's automatically a red flag and they keep their eyes on it because something like this could happen and they've been aware of it for decades and decades. And so this is like a nightmare scenario that people who understand viruses and pandemics have said this is a possibility, and it's finally happened. And the reason I feel like there's something divine or karmic about it is I look back over, I don't know, even the last 10, 15, 20 years, and there's been increasing discomfort, not only in our country, but in the world. You see world news, people are complaining about their countries. They're not happy with what's going on. And so there's this global unrest, and people have been crying out for change. And we know that thought precedes form. Thought always precedes form. So you always have the wave before the particle. And
Right.
so everybody was focusing on what they're unhappy about. So something divine said, all right, here you go. Here's your opportunity to change. Go to your room, think about what you want, and figure out how you can create that on the other side of this.
Do you think some people won't change? Do you feel like some people are just going to get stuck? It doesn't really matter.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because whenever you consider statistically the bell curve, you know, there are absolutely people when you get into your standard deviations who are just going to be staunch and not able to change, and they're not going to fare so well through this. They're going to end up miserable inside their own head.
Yeah. So even after we get the okay to go out and do what we do, and some people are going to have a really difficult time, just they're kind of going to go back to old patterns maybe, and then those old patterns won't maybe work necessarily.
Right. Yeah, I think that that's definitely a possibility, and there's a shift. There's definitely an energetic shift happening. And I think a lot of people can feel that. I've seen a lot of posts on social media, people saying, has anybody noticed like tingling, or have you experienced any weird sensations in your body since this is all set? And so there are just various random conversations like this happening. And people going, oh my gosh, I thought I was crazy, like afraid to talk about this stuff. And I think this is where we need to come out and start talking about stuff like this. Because it's important. It's important to share these experiences, because those shared experiences are how we connect. And right now it's more important than ever to connect. And we're also being taught very, very clearly, if you just stand back and look, we're being taught how to be separate and connected at the same time. And we're being shown very clearly that we are all one, and that we are all connected. And, you know, that what one person does affects another. And so that's the, and I can't believe I'm going to say this phrase, but I'm going to say it. That's the brilliance of this virus. I mean, because there's almost a brilliance underlying it, because if you just really look at what it's asking us to do, it's asking us to go within. And one of the people that I like to follow is Caroline Myss. And she put this in language that is just so, so beautiful that I'm just going to use her language or her analogy, because I can't improve upon it. She talks about the phoenix. And right now we are watching the destruction of the phoenix. The phoenix is going down in ashes. And we all know the story of the phoenix, that eventually the phoenix will rise up out of the ashes again. So it's the death and rebirth. And you can't birth something new unless you destroy something old. I mean, it's the cycle of life. And, you know, even in the the Hindu tradition of Om is not O-M, it's A-U-M, A-U-M, you know, and whenever you put it together, it comes out Om. And it's 4 syllables, A-U-M, and silence. The silence is considered a syllable, and it represents the creation, preservation, destruction, and rebirth of the cycle. So the silence is the pause. The silence is the rebirth.
Do an Om for us.
You know, and yeah, the Om.
There's a lot of new people online too, so they're learning too. That a lot of people are awakening. So that's the reason I wanted you to do that, because we had a town hall meeting last week. We had Sammy, who's on right now. He talked about that too. There's a lot of new people who are awakening to things that they never experienced before, and so he's been kind of a good leader in that aspect, where he's been helping people with that. So I do see that.
Right. And so go back to the cycle and the rebirth of the cycle. So if we look at the phoenix, things are going down in ashes right now, because we've been told for the last several weeks repeatedly, especially here in Ohio, because I think we have a governor that really wants to save as many lives as he can. So he's been trying not to let this run rampant, because we've heard the statistics. 2 to 3% of the people who get this, somewhere in that frame, 2%, let's say it's 2% pass away who get this virus. Okay, let's let it go unchecked in this country.
Okay.
We have a population of 331 plus million people in this country.
Yes.
2% of that is 6.6, almost 6.7 million people.
Yeah.
2% of this country is almost 6.7 million people, on top of everybody who dies from all the normal reasons they would die every day anyway.
Right.
That's
a lot of people.
We can't handle that in our medical system. We can't handle it.
Right.
And so that's the danger in letting this run rampant, is what are we going to do with an extra 6.6 million bodies in that short of a period of time? So I get why my butt's at home. I don't like it, but I understand it. And I'm on board, because, you know, it's somehow we're back to this fight between what's more important. You've got on one hand, people saying the economy and money, and you've got on the other hand, people saying life, not just human life, but life in general, life in general. Like, we're still not sure how this affects animals, and we're still learning how this affects humans. So people are getting angry because, you know, again, all I can talk about is here in Ohio. I'm not watching a lot of the other updates, but people are getting really angry because what Dr. Acton or Governor DeWine or Lieutenant Governor Houston is saying might be different than what they said last week. Okay, we've learned new information since last week. So they're smart enough to change their minds when they learn. And there's a little bit of cognitive dissonance, you know, and choosing to say, okay, this is what you said 3 weeks ago. So why isn't it still that? Well, we're learning. We're learning as we go, and we're learning at a rapid rate. So of course things are going to change. And what we're told one day could very well change and be the polar opposite 2 or 3 days later, because we've learned new information. And guess what? We had it wrong the first time we thought it, you know, the first time we were here. So yeah, things are going to shift and change. But where the brilliance of this is society's never going to be the same. We've been told that again. Over and over and over. Whenever we go back out into the world, it's not going to be business as usual. So things are burning and falling away. They're going down with the phoenix in the ashes in the bigger world around us. Now's our opportunity, while we're at home, to go within and look at, what about me? And what parts of myself do I want to throw in the ashes and burn up with that phoenix? And whenever something rises out of the ashes, what do I want to rise out of the ashes on the other side of this? And so that's where, if we're at home, that's where the richness of the work can be. And I'm having, like, I'm trying to learn a new skill. I'm trying to teach myself how to sew. I'm trying to teach myself how to use a sewing machine. I've never done this before. Not really. You know, I've kind of piddled around in the past, and what I've done, but what I've done in the past, whenever I've tried to sew or use a sewing machine, is stand back and say, oh, you show me how to do it. And then by the time I'm done learning, it's all done and I don't have to do anything. And now I actually have to learn to sew. Well, I don't have to, but I'm trying, and it's a slow process. And I'll sit down, and for a few hours one day, I'll work on it. And then I might have 2 or 3 days where I can't focus on anything. Where I'm not productive, I'm not getting anything done. And you know what? That's okay, because we have all experienced a trauma. We have all lost something. Everybody's lost something in this. There's no way around it. So we're all going to experience grief. And I'm noticing the grief coming up. And sometimes, like, I'm dealing with the emotions of grief coming up, like the anger, the denial, the bargaining, all of this. It's all starting to well up inside of me. And I will take sometimes 2 or 3 days at a time to deal with the emotional aspect, so it doesn't leave that traumatic imprint that I'm going to carry in the future. If I deal with it now, then I don't have to deal with it later.
Yeah, it's funny you said grief, because things are falling away and things are shifting for people, and people, like it or not, something's changing. I agree with you there. Something is moving, something is creeping, and something is falling away from our belief systems, from our physicality, relationships falling away, new relationships developing too.
Yes.
So there's a whole bunch of it really depends how you look at it too. You can look
Hmm.
at it as negative or positive or both.
Hmm.
Kind of an ebb and flow. You know, we're gonna have good days and bad days.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
you know, I personally yesterday was just totally wiped out,
Hmm.
and that's one of the reasons. And I took a nap, and
Hmm.
there was no drum circle yesterday because I was tired, and I by the time I
Yeah.
woke up, it was like 10 o'clock. So
Hmm.
I missed out on that opportunity. But that's what my body, you know, in the past I would have ignored it and just kind of did it,
Hmm.
gone through it, I would have been fine. But my body was really going, hey, Iggy, I know
Hmm.
you haven't been doing a lot of stuff, and haven't been super busy, but you're tired because you've been
Right.
working out a lot. You've been pushing your body to get physically better and in shape, and it taxes your mind a little bit. So your mind is actually a little
Right.
tired because, and I've been a lot of thinking, and I'm one of those
Hmm.
people who likes to be into everything and involved in everything,
Hmm.
but I haven't really been doing that. And I mentioned that in the last show because I don't know. There's just part of me just like I have to recharge, and there's some new things I need to
Right.
learn about myself. And
Absolutely.
so I don't have any guilt. I don't feel any pressure. I don't feel bad if I'm not doing what I usually do.
Hmm.
It's me time also.
Right. Well, and when it comes to grief and all the emotions that come with it, it takes energy
Mhm.
to do the emotional processing and then the emotional integrating after. So it that takes energy. And if you're just pushing through and ignoring your emotions and not tending to them and like you said, still showing up at the drum circle, that's whenever people start to experience things like insomnia, or they can't fall asleep because they're wired and tired.
Mhm.
They're just exhausted and they're too tired to fall asleep. That's a real thing because it takes energy for the body to fall asleep. And if you have depleted yourself to the point that you like literally don't have enough energy to fall asleep, that's a problem. It's a
Yeah, and
major problem.
that's but the funny part is I've slept a lot, but I
Hmm.
haven't but it's
Yeah.
been a restless sleep though. It's been like
Right.
getting up at 4 in the morning sometimes or getting up at 9,
Hmm.
and then the part of my ego's like, dude, we didn't get anything done. It's like, well, because we're not supposed to get anything done. We're supposed to just rest, and because the work's coming. Be ready to work because when the siren gets cleared, the all clear gets called, you're going to be right back in the flow of things, but you're going to go back with a different attitude, a different feel, a different
Hmm.
vigor, a
Right.
different drive.
Right. Right. And another thing that I wanted to mention too, when it comes to sleep, a lot of people have been waking up in the middle of the night. I've been having that experience too, where I'll wake up at 4 or 5 o'clock, just can't get back to sleep, wide awake all of a sudden. And research on the brain in the
Mhm.
last 20, 25 years is basically revealing that our pineal gland is essentially a receiver. It's like a little antenna receiver.
Right.
And a lot of what's happening is some of the, I'm just going to say energies, for lack of a better word, are coming in, and it's like kind of like downloads almost. So a lot of us are starting to tune in to different frequencies than we have before. So a lot of people are going to start having new experiences. So for example, one thing that has been a new experience for me is I tend to be more audience. So whenever I get, again, for lack of a better thing to call it, messages from my higher self, or, you know, some people call it God, whatever you want to label that thing, but um, that voice of wisdom
Mm-hmm.
that lives in everybody's head. Um, that's that's starting to tune into different frequencies, and that voice tends to be more audient with me. Well, it's becoming more visual,
Mm-hmm.
and not necessarily more visual when I'm asleep. Um, the stuff where you're like, did I just see that? Am I crazy?
Margaret.
Those little thoughts go
Yeah.
through your head.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I know I'm not. I
Right.
know I know I'm not. So
Yeah.
because I've studied this and I've been on this path for a while, I've worked with other people that have had similar experiences. I know that this is it's a shift in a frequency that I'm tuning into, essentially.
Yeah. It's for me, it's a lot of the martyrism part of my being. giving myself away, and has really shifted for me because I like to give, and sometimes I give, without a fault. And so for me, this downtime has been good because I thought about me first, and I'm usually not like that. It's not that's kind of out of my character a little bit. And I'm like, somebody says, "Hey, can you do this for me?" I'm like, "Well, maybe tomorrow." And it's not about being disciplined. It's not about this. It's about being focused on who you are and what is good for you. Also, because we've been raised in a society that we have to give, and we have to be disciplined. And sometimes we throw everything away about ourselves throw it out, and then all of a sudden we find ourselves compromised, upset, frustrated, and we perform. Our lack of performance drops because we think we have to push and drive ourselves to the extreme to prove to somebody or someone that, hey, I'm worthy. And for me, it's like, I don't have anything to prove to anybody except for myself and for the universe, creator, whatever, that, I'm alive, and I'm grateful for that. Thankful for that. That's kind of where my heart's been like, Iggy, do what's good for Iggy, for Ignacio Garcia, because Ignacio Garcia has given. Ignacio Garcia has also received, but now it's time for me to give back to myself something that I have not given to myself. And that's me to stand in my own power.
Yes.
And, believe it or not, as much as you guys perceive how you see me, I'm just like everybody. I'm no different than you. We're no different. I cry, I laugh, I sing, I go to the bathroom in the morning, usually like you do. And, and I go to bed like everybody.
Right.
And you know what? The difference that I'm finding is that when I don't want to do something, I don't want to give myself away, I'm not going to do it. I'll be respectful and honorable in the way I present that. And, I had a little rant last Saturday. I kind of went off, I don't want to say off the rails, but I was pissed off. And, and I let those people know it. I said, you want transparency? Well, here's transparency. F you.
Yep.
It's where I needed to be.
Yep, exactly.
Some people, I don't care if you agree or disagree with me. That wasn't the point. The point was, I was going to protect my space. I'm going to honor who I am and how I see the world.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's super important right now, because it's almost like, going back to what I said about where I see this as being almost divine or karmic. This virus has essentially lifted the veil, because it's like we're all in the emperor's new clothes right now.
Right. That's a good point. That's a very good point.
I mean, really, to some extent we are. And and we're to the point where people aren't going along with us anymore in order to avoid being ridiculed or shamed or seen as stupid because they didn't see the emperor's new clothes. Like the kids already called it out. Like somebody in the crowd's already said, hey, look, you're naked. And so what we're seeing with people is who they truly are, and their true core values are starting to come out. And it's actually quite surprising with some people. Some people who have come across as, like givers or leaders or even, like spiritual guru type people are showing themselves to be staunch advocates of the economy and not life. And vice versa. It's vice versa. It's going on the other side too. I was quite surprised to see our governor step up and become the leader that he has through this.
Well, it's for him. He had to really step up or step out. Let somebody else. It was one or the other.
Right. It's almost like he decided, and I don't know what he was really thinking, but my perception is it's almost like he chose leadership over politics in this scenario.
And there's a difference.
Yes, there's a big difference. There's a big difference. There's a big difference.
And Ohio has actually been a very good example for the rest of the nation and actually the world. And I'm just like you. I'm very proud of the people here in Ohio doing their part, because it's important. Even though we step aside, we talked about this a little earlier. Sometimes we have to put things aside just temporarily for us to move into a better direction.
Right.
If we wanted to be stubborn and we wanted to be jerks and we wanted to prove a point, we're really good at that. Human beings are very good at that. And there's going to be brothers and sisters who are going to represent that part of us, when we're not going to do it, because they just, that's just their core, innate core being of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another part of us that goes, hey, you know what? I want to live to tell the story in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
They're telling the story in a different way in their own lives, because that means something to them. That's something
Mm-hmm.
very valuable to them. And I totally respect that. What I do respect about people here in Ohio is that, they've taken it serious, and, and it should be taken serious, because we don't know anything about this. We don't know nothing. We know zero, because you can look in the faces of our leaders as they tell you things, and they know nothing. They just know what we can do in order to prevent some things from happening. I can look at the TV, and I can look at DeWine and Trump and whoever speaks up there, and they have that look in their eye. Like, I don't want to lie to you, but I have to say this, because you know what? We really don't know what's going on, but we just know people are dying. Things can happen. So my biggest concern right now, energetically, is what happens next. I know we're moving into this 3-phase, rollout system. We like all this stuff. 3-phase rollout. But it's concerning, because we're on this fine line. We need to survive, and we need basic needs. But where's the value? Where's the value? Is life more valuable? We talked about this when you started the show. Or is money more important? I know people have to pay bills, but if the system completely collapsed and fell apart, we would find a way to survive. Human beings would just do that. We would find a way, and we would make it work. So for me, if it totally fell apart and completely just crushed and died, that could be the best blessing ever.
It could.
Because
it very well could.
You know how many people have complained and totally just complain and complain and complain. Oh, the system's broken. Oh, here's your chance. Here's our chance.
If it's broken, then let's fix it. So
how do we fix it? That's good
right,
point, right?
Exactly. And the thing is too, the way that we have established society and economies around the world is there are a lot of similarities. I mean, there are differences from country to country, and at the same time, there are a lot of similarities, especially since, in the last, 15, 20 years, we've pretty much been a global community. and this is not the only end all be all way to create a society and to build a society. This is just what we happen to be born into. And because we were born into it, we believe that this is the way. And what if there's another way that's a little bit better for everybody? And can we get there? I don't know. I really don't know. Because what I find most concerning in this situation are the choirs of the me in the background. A lot of people, not everybody, but there are a lot of people out there who are focused on me. Look what I lost. Look what I have to worry about. Look how this is affecting me. I've got to do this. I can't go to Walmart. I can't get my hair done. I can't get my nails done. I can't go to the gym. I can't blah, 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 blah. Oh my God. What a spoiled society we are. And if this isn't showing us how spoiled we are, and people are protesting the loss of conveniences, not rights. And we have that really muddled in this country on rights. And there seems to be this free-for-all entitlement that I have the right to this and I have the right to that, and right. Well, with rights on the flip side of that are responsibilities.
This is true.
If we're not going to be responsible with those rights, why do we have them in the first place? Because, who is it? Spider-Man that says, with great power comes great responsibility. Yeah. Well, some of these rights that we have, that's what gives us our power, or some of these rights. And a lot of the stuff that people are really complaining about, and I'm going to go there. I'm going to say the word whining, because there is some whining going on. Some of the things that people are complaining about are the loss of conveniences.
Yeah, you're right.
Because they're conveniences. And we can return to a simpler way of life. And a simpler way of life is simple and easy are not synonymous. I just want to say that and make it really clear. We had a very easy society, so easy, so convenient. And look at how complicated convenience is. And let me just take a basic example of convenience: fast food.
Fast food.
Look at how complicated it is to make fast food. Fast food isn't even food. There's filler in fast food, in McDonald's sandwiches. It's not 100% ground beef. There's some ground beef in there, but there's a lot of filler in it, and there's a lot of crap in it.
Sure.
So look at how complicated of a process all these factories have to go through, chemical companies to make the filler, because the filler comes from DuPont chemical, which is disgusting, that they put in McDonald's sandwiches, and it's really gross. But anyhow, look at how complicated it is to make a convenient fast food sandwich, so you can get in your car, not even get out of your car, so you can drive through a window and have a sandwich handed to you, and you can just feed your face as you're driving down the road. If that's not complicated to get to convenient, I don't know what is. Now, simple is, you cook the burger at home, you make your food at home. It's a little bit more complicated on your part. It's a little bit more work on your part, but it's certainly a simpler way of life. Sure. So maybe we're being called to go back to, having our own gardens, or maybe an expansion of community gardens. I have a large front yard. I would be happy to put a big garden in my front yard and just feed the whole neighborhood from it, because I have enough in my front yard to feed my whole neighborhood.
Right.
So, so I could put a community garden right in my front yard.
Absolutely.
I would be so happy to do that. Although I would like to put a labyrinth in the middle of it.
Yeah, okay.
Meditation labyrinth. Yeah, meditation labyrinth. I'd love to have one of those too.
I used to have one in my old house.
Yeah. But there are so many things. And I know just in the little bit of time, the month or so that we've been in quarantine, or stay-at-home orders, or safe at home, or lockdown, whatever it's called, I've been finding ways to be even more sustainable than I was before. It's a little bit more complicated, but I've been finding ways. I've been seeking them out. Just little things. Like I found a place where I can get cleaning supplies, where I can reduce single-use plastic from cleaning supplies by getting reusable bottles, and they have tabs that you put in water and then it melts. And I'm going to give it a try to see if this tab turns into a good glass cleaner, or a good countertop and tile cleaner, or whatever. Right. And if I like it, I'm certainly going to tell people about it and say, hey, look, all you have to do is buy these little tabs to replace it. You don't have to buy a new plastic bottle every time. Most cleaners
come from derivative of water, so there's
part
of water in it, so.
Right, exactly. So, just little tiny things like that. If everybody did that, imagine the impact it would have. If everybody did just one thing like that.
Yeah. I know it's uncomfortable for some people, because they've never been in the situation, and I get that, and I understand that.
None of us have ever been there.
This is nothing. This is nothing that anybody in these generations have ever been part of.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's like, hold on, we're in new territory. Everybody in this together. Baby boomers all the way to Gen X's, all the way to millennials, and everybody's in this.
Yeah.
And everybody's approaching it completely different and experiencing however they're going to experience it. And everybody's going to tell the story in their own ways, and they're going to express it however they need to express it. And regardless of what happens, when did we close the country down? What, March 12th? Was it March 12th?
I don't remember.
Yeah, it was something around that time, I believe. And so it's
that was about when Ohio closed down, and I think the country was a week or two later.
Okay, so you know what? It's May 17th. It's just a little over a month. So
yeah, something like that.
This is kind of like a vacation for some people who weren't really wanting one, but they got one. And so here's an opportunity for us to learn some new things. You're learning how to sew. I've talked about the Renaissance, how people are painting, people are creating, crafting.
Right.
People are writing books. People are doing all kinds of amazing things.
Right.
There are also some people who aren't doing anything, and that's okay. Yeah. That's all right.
Well, and I want to add another little tidbit in.
Go ahead.
Because some people who, quote, aren't doing anything, it's not because they don't want to do something. It's because they're dealing with their own trauma. And I kind of went off on a little rant a week and a half, 10 days ago, whenever that was. I did a little pissy Facebook Live, borderline pissy, because there's this meme that's been circulating on Twitter and Facebook, and I have seen it several times in the last 3 weeks, and it won't go away. And it's basically saying, if you're, at home in quarantine and you're not learning a new skill or creating, I can't remember the 3 things it said, then it wasn't lack of time, it's lack of discipline. And as a trauma specialist, that just infuriates me, because that is a way to shame people.
I agree.
They're at home struggling. So don't let people, if you're at home struggling with your trauma, first of all, one thing that we are being called to do, I firmly believe, and again, this goes back to that divine karmic purpose. I firmly believe that all of us are being called to get in touch with our vulnerability. So if you are at home struggling with some sort of trauma, be vulnerable right now. We have to be vulnerable, because I can't go to your house and check on you. I don't know what you're experiencing. Now is the time to reach out. Send somebody a text message and say, hey, do you have time for a call? I really need to talk. Or send somebody a message on Facebook, or start a chat with somebody. Ask for a Zoom session. I've been putting myself out there saying, if anybody needs this, whether you know me or not, let me know. And I will do whatever I can to find a way to have a Zoom call with you. And on the flip side of that, if you are a practitioner, again, be vulnerable enough to put yourself out there. And you don't even have to be a practitioner, but if you're not struggling and you're a little bit more together and a little bit more okay and at peace with what's happening, put yourself out there and say, is there anything I can do to help? Is there anything I can do to help support you? Could I offer myself for a conversation if you have the capacity to do so? So I think that's really, really important for all of us, because to share our gifts with the world, which could be as simple as listening to somebody cry and holding space, or to be vulnerable enough to say, I need help. I think we're all being called to be vulnerable, because there is vulnerability in saying, hey, I have this thing to offer. And there's vulnerability in saying, hey, I need that thing that you have to offer.
Yeah, there's vulnerability is really big right now. And, there's nothing wrong with being vulnerable.
Right.
As long as, you have healthy limits and boundaries, of course.
Right.
For yourself, no one's trampling on you and taking advantage of you. But that's, everybody's going to have their own story to tell about what happens. It's going to be really interesting a year from now when we come back, and just for example, on Facebook, you get these memories that pop up and, look back and go, wow, that really happened. Because I'm looking at the memories that are popping up on my Facebook page now of things that I did. I'm going, really? I did that kind of stuff? It's like, some things didn't change, and some things are like, wow, I've come a long way just in a year, going through my grief process in the last 4 years with family members dying. And so that's been kind of it's these last 5 years have been crazy. I'm just like, what is going on? What more could happen? And, I'm like at the precipice of
don't ask that. Don't ask that.
No,
now is not the time to...
I was like, yes, 2020 is going to be fantastic. This is like a lot of people said this,
right?
And then I'm going, yeah, I'm feeling good. Yeah, I'm moving in. And then all of a sudden it's like, there's a virus and we all have to be locked away for months. And I'm going, what?
Right.
I got canceled. That got canceled.
Yeah. Right.
My drum circle got canceled. Why did you cancel my drum circle? It was weird. It was odd. It was like, why are we canceling that? I really thought this. I mean, it ran my mind. Like, okay.
Yeah.
There's a chance that we could probably spread to each other. Okay. Because I don't have any point of reference or any memory or any experience to go, how do I engage? Right. Because I don't have that. But see, now we do. We all do. We will.
I wouldn't go so far as to say we all do, but I think a lot of us do.
Well, yeah, but if you think about it, the next time you hug somebody, you're going to think twice about hugging somebody.
I thought twice about hugging people before. But, I am not a touchy-feely, come hug me type person.
Well, neither am I. People just like to hug me. I don't know why, and I just put my arms out. I guess I just look like a bear. But the funny part is, you're going to think, 6 feet of separation. You're gonna be like, should I stand over here? How
Mhm.
close is too close now? Are we past the threshold? Is there a threshold?
Mhm.
You know, I
Oh, this
mean,
social distancing out in public, this is a dream come true for me. Oh my God. Do you remember the movie Dirty Dancing?
yeah,
Whenever they're like, this is your dance space, this is my dance space. Let's
yeah.
cha-cha. And I think that all the time when I'm out in public. I'm like, oh my God, just stay in your own dance space. Don't get so close to
Try to
me.
talk to somebody in a mask. Try to give a facial expression. You have to use your eyes, and everybody's like, "What are you looking at me like? What? Why are you looking at me like that?" Oh no, I'm actually smiling under this mask. You know, it's kind of like,
Yeah.
it's funny.
And
You
then I
know,
have the Scarlett O'Hara problem, which it doesn't matter what I'm thinking, it's written all over my face.
okay. I remember how people used to make fun of people who used to wear masks.
Hmm.
And we're like, "Oh, why is that guy wearing a mask?"
Hmm.
I see people, but now it's like a lot of people wearing masks. Like it's
Right.
and now they're coming out with these designer masks, and people come
Right.
out with these cool masks, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? I'm like, what is this?
Yep.
I'm like, but it's
Might as
funny.
well have fun with it. If we're going
I
to be,
know,
if we have to wear masks, might as well be
but
creative.
it's funny. And then how that is, now all of a
Yeah.
sudden it's like really cool to have a
Yeah.
mask.
I actually want to get together. We should do that instead of doing our little pouches. We should get
Mhm.
together and make our plague masks. Oh my God. I want one of those so bad.
Put some thieves oil in it. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah,
I know
I've
what
been
you're saying.
making my own hand sanitizer too because you can't find
Okay.
it anywhere.
Yeah. I posted something that someone posted me about hand sanitizer. Some hand sanitizers stay lit. If you
Hmm.
put fire to them, they stay on fire.
Hmm.
Okay. And so some friends of mine, I don't know if they believe me or didn't. So they bought one with aloe vera and one without aloe vera. The one with aloe vera didn't catch on fire. The one that was regular hand sanitizer,
Hmm.
just your bargain
Hmm.
sanitizer, well, it caught on fire. It lit.
Yeah.
And it was like hard to put out. You put water on it, it'll still stay lit.
Hmm.
So they wanted to debunk me or the theory.
Hmm.
And I'm like, damn, that thing's still on fire. So it
Yeah.
should I never knew that.
Yeah.
And how many years I don't, it's just
Hmm.
funny. All the things that
Yeah.
are coming out.
Right. Well, I found a couple different recipes for homemade hand sanitizer, and I have I didn't have to go buy this because we have a couple bottles in the house.
Okay.
It's one recipe was 50-50 rubbing alcohol and aloe vera gel.
Oh, okay.
And the other one was three to 2 to 1. I think it was 2 to 1, 2 to 1, 2 rubbing alcohol to 1 aloe vera. So I did both recipes. And of course I put a whole bunch of essential oils in because, that rubbing alcohol just stinks to high heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So just to mitigate the smell a little bit. And so I don't have to worry about running out to buy hand sanitizer. I'm not worried about whether or not I have Clorox wipes in the house because I actually have a gallon of Clorox. So
Okay.
it's not that hard to have a little bucket of Clorox water with a rag in it that you just reuse and, dump out because you don't need a whole lot of water. And so
Well, I've been to your
it's like
office
that.
and I've seen it. I've seen your
Yeah.
stuff.
So there are ways that just because that one product that is not available at the store, like there are ways around that.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you don't have a Clorox wipe at your house doesn't mean it's the end of the world. I don't have any Clorox wipes at my house. Can't find them. And
Right.
even if I could find them, I don't know that I would buy them because I don't need to bring that extra single-use plastic in my house.
Right.
And, the whole toilet paper thing really had me baffled because as much as I like toilet paper, if I run out, I know that I have soap and water and showers and bathtubs. I mean, like, all right, it's not convenient, but
You should see your face.
I can get my butt clean if I don't have toilet paper. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm just baffled by this hoarding. And also, again, as a trauma specialist, the way people are acting right now is very telling about where they're stuck. Okay. So you can see in...
okay, toilet paper. Let's go there. You're there.
Yeah, right.
Go there.
So in the toilet paper, so the people
take us there.
Yeah, so the people who are hoarding toilet paper, a lot of them, or who are hoarding anything, it's all about me, 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 me. I've got to be ready. Like we have to have everything ready. And so when you're in that me, 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 me thinking, then you're really stuck in your survival brain because you're worried about, am I going to live through this? Am I going to survive this? Do I have enough to get through it? And so you're asking, like, what about me and how am I going to get through this? And so the sea of me, me, me's are a lot of people who are just flat out stuck in survival mode. And then when you get people who are projecting and who are angry, like, can you believe that guy was at the store? Or, I was on my way home from work and I can't believe Target was packed and blah, 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 blah. All right. You don't know who was in Target. You don't know why they were in Target. You don't know what they were doing.
Right.
And yet we're making all these assumptions that everybody should stay home and I'm the end all be all who should be able to say that. Meanwhile, I'm out driving around seeing all the cars that are at Target. So the little hypocrisy there too. So those people who are projecting are stuck in their limbic brain. They're stuck in the emotional brain, and they're worried about, like what other people are doing. And then there are the people that are really able to access their cognitive brain, and they're like, okay, what can I do? How can I help? I don't like this. And at the same time, I understand what I'm doing. I understand why I'm here. They're able to access their rational thinking. And so that just kind of aligns, like you can see the behaviors that align with the different parts of the brain, the reptilian brain, the limbic brain, and the cognitive or neocortical brain.
Yeah. And, I find it very fascinating that you could see the behaviors of people, but that behavior can change too.
Absolutely.
Over the course of this isolation. It's funny. It's just funny. Words are very tricky for people. Like I remember I threw the word quarantine out there, and people are like, "Oh, we're not in quarantine. We're in isolation. We're like," I'm thinking, well, like they didn't want to call it pandemic either, right? And then they called it pandemic, and it's like,
yeah.
I'm like, and it's all of a sudden it shifts the energy, it shifts the the words around a little bit, and it puts us in a different state of mind. Everything that they say to us is very powerful messages. We have to be very careful how we receive that message. You say quarantine, that has a whole different connotation and picture for some people. You say isolation, that's a whole different thing for somebody else.
Right.
That's, and you just have to be you have to be aligned where you're at. Because what I'm finding is we're doing some very powerful ceremonial things, and people don't even realize that we're doing this. Number one, we're washing our hands. That's a very ceremonial aspect, a very ceremonial act of washing and cleansing ourselves and preparing ourselves for meals, to engage another human being, just to honor ourselves. That hand cleaning is very powerful. This silence of this isolation is a time where monks would go into the cave and meditate for days. And they would just sit there and take in the energies and read and download whatever they need to download. These are very good, powerful things. And then it's funny because I actually talked about this with somebody. I forget who I talked to, but we were talking about how in some Asian cultures, the man walks is ahead and the woman is like 6 paces back. And I'm going, so is that something that was just tradition, or is that something because there was a lot of pandemics before? And so maybe it's something that they just did and just kind of stuck. We just need to stay away from each other. But it's honoring, people's space. We're honoring people's space. We're honoring our own space. You mentioned that earlier.
And I want to point out that I love that you're questioning and not assuming. You're questioning, why do they do that, and not just assuming. I'll look at the patriarchal society and how they're dissing women. And so, and the only reason I want to point that out is because it's so easy for people in this country to look at other cultures and jump to conclusions, because we hear so much about the patriarchy and toxic masculinity and yada, yada, yada. And we project that onto other cultures. When if we would just STFU and get curious about it.
I like that. You're right.
So sorry, I just wanted to point that out because it's important. It's really important to remain in curiosity right now.
And I'm one of the most curious people I know.
You are curious.
But I find it very fascinating. Cultures and traditions happen because of certain things from our ancestral past. And sometimes we just do it because it's been done, and we don't necessarily know why. Sometimes
Right.
there's no answer, but now when you see and you're in this experience
Mm-hmm.
of this isolation, this quarantine, the separation, 6 feet of distance,
Mm-hmm.
washing of our hands, washing of our clothes,
Mm-hmm.
because they say you should wash your clothes as if you've been out.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole bunch of new type of ceremony that's being created here.
Yes.
We're in ceremony. You don't
Mm-hmm.
even know you're in ceremony. And here
Mm-hmm.
you're doing all these things, and it's very ceremonial. You're
Yes.
going through purpose. You're going through an honoring of you, honoring
Right.
your family, honoring all the things that you probably took for granted. The
Mm-hmm.
things you didn't even think about. And now you're going through this every day. You're doing this. Everybody, majority of people are doing this,
Right.
and they don't even know why. They just do it because they're trusting the process. But
Exactly.
you're honoring yourself in such a great way that you don't even realize when you do this, or
Mm-hmm.
if someone else in your house is doing it for you,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. It's just really your people are cooking meals and doing things that
Mm-hmm.
they've never done on a regular basis. I think I've cooked more dinners here than I've ever cooked in my restaurant. No, that's not true. I cook a lot of meals in my restaurant, but it's just interesting to find.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also a fasting period too. I also find that I've
Yeah.
been in a fasting period where I don't want to eat anything. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
not hungry. Like I am very satisfied to go 8 to 12 hours of having something to eat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like I have to eat because I need to eat. Oh, it's 5 o'clock. I need to eat. No, because that's an old traditional way.
Mm-hmm.
I find myself doing some things that I didn't really think about before.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I don't
Yeah.
know. How
And
about you? What are you finding?
yeah, I'm finding similar things too, where I'm spending more time washing my hands, being more attentive to it. And again, like you said, just doing different things around the house. I'm taking more breaks for myself. I'm being easier on myself. I'm catching my mind.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, so just catching myself. So going back to me teaching myself how to sew.
Mm-hmm.
Holy crap, last Saturday was not a good day. I spent most of the day sewing, back and forth at my sewing machine. And if if you were a fly on the wall that day in my house, you would have a hard time believing that I have a spiritual life and a spiritual practice. I used an exorbitant amount of sentence enhancers. Um, we'll call them. And yes, absolutely. A lot of F words flying out of my mouth that day. And, to the point where a couple times I had to get up and go outside and walk around and clear my head so I could settle my emotions and come back to it. And so honoring those emotions and taking those breaks,
Mm-hmm.
because there was a time in my past where I would have been frustrated, but I wouldn't have left until the job was done.
Okay.
There's no way I would have gotten up from that sewing machine and walked away for an hour or two and then come back to it. And so I can see my growth over the years, and I can see the wisdom in stepping away from it. I can see the wisdom in noticing when my mind is starting to go off the rails, because when my mind was like, okay, I'm so frustrated because I don't understand this machine, and it's really old, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a crappy brand sewing machine. Like, you know what I mean? It's not a good one. I know it's not a
Okay.
good sewing machine. Um, but I don't sew, so I didn't think I needed a good one.
Right.
Anyhow, so when it shifts from, I don't understand the sewing machine, I'm catching myself when it shifts to, oh, you're too stupid to do this. You can't
Okay.
learn this. What are you doing? That's
Mm-hmm.
my cue to do what I tell my clients to do all the time, and that's practice the pause. I noticed the shift in my self-talk, and that was, okay, put your hands on the table and push. You got to get away from the sewing machine for a little bit, because
Mm-hmm.
it's not because I'm stupid. I'm trying to learn something new, and I don't have the motor skills and the muscle memory to do this well yet.
Right.
And
Makes
at the
sense.
same time, I'm putting together masks, and they're holding together. It's, I mean, it's working. Just don't look at some of the bunched up thread and crooked seams.
Hey, your mask's off, man.
Yeah.
I might not be able to
Yeah.
breathe right.
Right. So it's always in the corners or the start or the stop where the thread bunches up, it seems like. And at the same time, I'm getting there. So, and again, the only reason I'm talking about this is because I think it's illustrative of what I'm saying, like practice that pause. And so we are given an opportunity if we choose to take it. We are given the opportunity to go within and really start to pick apart, like, okay, what are these things that I want to keep and what do I not want to keep? And one of the things I don't want to keep is the self-abuse.
Oh,
And
okay.
that
Very good.
self-abuse, those things that I say to myself inside my head. And for years, it was under the level of my consciousness. I didn't even realize how many times in my life I would tell myself I was stupid or that I wasn't capable or that I wasn't good enough. And then when it came to my awareness, then I went through a period of time where I was aware of it and I didn't know what to do about it. So it was almost like a little kid listening to the parent rant and you can't get away from them.
Right.
And then I started to learn skills on how to work with it. And now it's almost like in a lot of cases, not always, but a lot of cases, I nip it in the bud and I don't even have to pull some of my tools out of the toolbox. Because as soon as I hear that voice, I'm like, okay, there you are again. You can just head right on out. I hear you. This is my cue that it's time to take a break.
Okay. Very good. So let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Now that people are going to be coming out of this quarantine, this isolation, and I know you're a trauma specialist. I mean, without giving too much, because you could probably go on for hours talking about this, but what would be some suggestions that you would suggest for people to kind of ease back in? Because this could be a very traumatic moment for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So a couple things, and I've said a couple of them already. One of the big ones is just practice pausing, get used to pausing. And what I mean by that is between stimulus and response, there's a pause. So, and when I say stimulus, that moment that you get triggered, that moment that you get offended, that moment that you get activated and you're anxious or you're angry or you're frustrated or even sad or experiencing grief, whatever, those emotions that people like to label as negative. I call bullshit on negative and positive emotions, by the way.
Go ahead.
There's no such thing as a negative emotion or a positive emotion.
Explain to me.
It's all information.
Okay.
It's all information. Some emotions are more comfortable to us than others. The ones that we tend to label as negative, and I don't like negative because it has a connotation of bad or wrong, or we don't want it. We have to get it away.
Fair enough.
And whenever we get triggered or offended, I don't like, one thing that triggers me is stupid, and that's because of my self-talk, believing most of my life that I'm stupid. And so and it's not so much anymore, but I used to get really triggered if I thought somebody believed that I was stupid, or if somebody called me stupid, I would really get on the defensive. Well, those are just words. And stupid is used in a lot of scenarios, that's stupid, you're stupid. And it doesn't have that impact on everybody all the time. So why does it have that impact on me when I hear those words? That's because there's something in me that's not healed. And so that's my job whenever I notice the trigger, to delve into myself and find out what are the roots of this wound that I find so offensive or so triggering or so upsetting. And I'm able to put some space in there. So that's where the pause is really important. So when you notice you're having an uncomfortable emotion like anger or frustration, the best thing you can do is nothing. Just sit there. Don't let that emotion control your words or your behavior. And that's what I mean when I tell people to practice the pause. Because the more space you can put between getting triggered and an actual response, then you're not going to be reactive. Because if we don't put any space at all, it's all just knee-jerk reactions. And very little benefit comes from the knee-jerk reaction. And if you go back to the, what I was talking about earlier, that thought precedes creation. The thought is always in our mind. So thought before form. Thought always precedes form. So if that's the thought, then what you're bringing into form is that really what you want to bring into form? So that's why it's important, because if we're reactive, then we have no control whatsoever of what we're manifesting in our life. And we are constantly stuck in victim mentality. So if you don't learn to practice the pause and actually come to a response rather than a reaction, then you have, to some extent, like you're out of control creating what's happening in your life.
Right.
Like you're creating it unknowingly, and you're still creating it for yourself. And just because you don't know that you're creating it doesn't mean you're not creating it, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
So you're still creating it even though you don't know it. And so that gives the perception that you're in the victim mentality. So if you really want to be empowered, then learn to sit with those uncomfortable emotions until they pass. And that requires a level of self-restraint and self-control and self-compassion and self-empathy and self-understanding, because you have to love yourself enough not to go into the reaction so you can actually create what you want for yourself. And so that's super important. So I would recommend anybody start learning to pause and really just pause before you respond with words, or before you take an action. An email comes in, from your boss, and it's upsetting. Don't do that. Because it doesn't turn out well. Answer it in the morning. Answer it in the morning. And so maybe we are being called to go back to maybe a previous time. I know when I was a kid, I would get letters in the mail from my friends sometimes. When I got a letter in the mail from my friends, I would read it. I didn't sit down and just go and stick a letter back in the mail. It might be a week. So we gave more thoughtful responses when we used pen and paper.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And now that we have text messages, there's very little thought that goes into our text messages and emails. I'm guilty of it all the time. Every single day, autocorrect makes me look like a dumbass. Because I get in a hurry and I will send a text message or a personal message on Facebook or something, and I won't go back and reread it. And then I'll read it after I send it. And then I'm like, oh, sorry for the typo, or I meant this instead of this. Well, if I would have just taken the time to begin with. So I'm guilty of it too.
I'm guilty.
I'm guilty of it too.
I send you text, you're like, what do you say?
Yeah. And at the same time, I'm usually not overly emotional when I do that. So if I am overly emotional, I make a point not to respond immediately. Awesome. So that's going to be really important, is to learn to pause. And in that pause, while you're in the pause, in that space, get curious. Because curiosity is the antidote to judgment. So exactly what you were saying earlier, I saw this woman walking, 5 or 6 feet behind her husband, and I was curious, what's that about? Instead of automatically judging and assuming, oh, that's because it's a patriarch, and so there are so many judgments we could come to, or he doesn't value his wife, or she's not good enough to walk by his side. Okay, whatever, project your judgments out, but just know that that might not be the only possibility. And the more possibilities that you can see, then the more curious you get. You're like, oh, what if it's this? Or what if it's that? Or what if it's this? And then you realize you don't freaking know what it is. And then your judgment just flits away. It just kind of dissipates. So remain curious would be the next thing I would say. Awesome. And be as curious as you can about this virus, not judgmental. Because, oh my gosh, there's so much judgment going around. So much.
I'm sure I'm guilty at some point or another.
Yeah. And like all of the conspiracy theories and the hoaxes. Yeah. I think some of the conspiracy theories, there is something to it. Do I think they're related to the coronavirus? No, I don't. I'm having a really hard time seeing any conspiracy theories that make sense that are related to this virus. People are meaning-making machines, and that's a problem. Because humans have to give meaning, and they have to make everything mean something. And so I'm going to go back and reference Caroline Myss again. Because Caroline Myss, she talks about events like natural disasters or any event, really. So a tornado, a hurricane, a flood, this virus, it's not personal, people. I'm sorry. This is not personal. This is not about you.
Right.
So it's impersonal to the body. However, it is intimate to the soul. And those are her words: impersonal to the body and intimate to the soul. I can't take credit for that, and I wish I could. And so where it's intimate to the soul is there is a lesson that we are supposed to learn from this. Yes. And for each person, that lesson is going to vary. And also collectively, as a planet, as an entire globe, we're supposed to learn something for this too. There is a reason the whole entire globe is in this together.
Absolutely.
Because we're supposed to level up. We're supposed to find a way through this together, and realizing that we are all one and that we are all connected, and that these borders are part of the illusion.
Right.
And so if we can look at this going, okay, this virus is coming and it's not about me. However, there's a lesson that my soul needs to learn. And I'm so not a religious person or a biblical person, and I have been reflecting on the Bible more than I ever have in my life since this has started. Because, set religion aside, I still call bullshit on organized religion. Sorry, guys. I just can't. I can't have somebody tell me how to worship. I just or how to think in terms of, spirituality. I can't have somebody tell me how to do that. So this virus is taking me back to some of the things that we have read or heard about in the Bible, because we hear of these devastating stories in the Bible, like Sodom and Gomorrah, things like that. But we don't really take the time, like we think about the destruction that would have happened at Sodom and Gomorrah, for example, but do we really stop and think about, what if I was alive then? What if I lived there? What would that have been like? What would the arguments have been like? How would the people have responded? Things like that. And so this is kind of opening my eyes to things like that.
Yes.
It's also making me doubt what I've read in the history books, because we're in 2019, 2020 when all this started, and we can't get the damn numbers right. We have no clue how far this is. We lack testing, grossly lack testing in this country. And so because we don't have enough tests, the numbers are grossly underestimated. People can't get tested even though they have symptoms, or people, because they're in healthcare, are getting tested and they're testing negative because maybe they don't have it, because, so certain people are deemed more important to test right now, and we have to ration the tests. So we don't really have a grasp on what's going on. And yet we have some of the best record keeping that we've ever had as a species. You know what I mean? Like we're in the age of information, and we don't know what the F is going on. Yeah. So when I look back at stories about the plagues, or even stories of the Holocaust, which was something totally different, it wasn't a virus. Like, I'm not sure I believe any of those numbers anymore. I'm really leaning toward all of those numbers were grossly underestimated in the history books. Yeah.
I have to agree with you a little bit, because like you said, we don't know. So when we started the show, we don't know what's out there. We know what's going on, but we do know that something's happening, and it's forcing us to look at life much differently.
Exactly.
Much differently, for sure.
And I think too, it's important to remember, like, back to this impersonal and intimate thing, that I just want to bring another analogy in, just to let people know, because like this life, this world was not created for me. So it's not personal to me. Like I'm lucky enough to be here, but it wasn't created for me. However, there are a lot of lessons that I can learn that are very intimate to my soul that can help me move forward in life. And without adversity, we don't learn those lessons. So it's like, we always hear, without the storm, you wouldn't appreciate the sunshine.
That's true, right?
And that's true. I mean, there is some truth to that, because the more sunshiny days you have without rain, then you start to take the sunshine and the beautiful days for granted.
Yes.
until the pendulum swings too far in the other way and you're in a drought and you're dry and you're parched and you're starving because you don't have enough food. And then you start to see the value of water, and then the rains come, and then it goes the other way. And then you've got the floods and things wash out. And so like, we're always trying to get back to homeostasis. And so the other analogy, that I kind of wanted to bring in to really drive this point home about this is impersonal to who we are, but it's intimate to our soul, is motherhood. Motherhood was not created for me. Like billions of women before me had babies, and billions of women after me have babies. It's not about me. Okay. However, some of the most intimate lessons my soul has learned in this life have come through being a mother.
Interesting.
So it's not, so some of these events, and so whenever we hear the Four Agreements, Ruiz, is that his name?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. Like, so don't take anything personally. That's what he means. And so anytime something like this happens and we go into this, why is this happening to me? Why me? What did I do to deserve this? It's almost like you're not trusting the divine that exists within you.
Okay.
It's like basically, and I don't really like the term God just because of the connotation of, some dude. I don't believe God is a dude. I'm just going to say that. So I don't believe God is a person. I believe God is a force.
That's for another show.
Yeah, so that's for another show, and so that's why I tend to use words divine, like the divine or something.
That's why I say universe. So
yeah, right. So yeah. So some of these experiences can really, really propel us forward and help us learn if we can start to listen to that voice. And, and we hear this from the Bible that the Lord works in mysterious ways.
Yes.
So maybe this is one of his mysterious ways. And again, if you look at the Bible, look at how many disasters God has used to wake people up.
Yeah. This is true.
This is nothing new. And what we are experiencing is of biblical proportion, even more so than what's in the Bible, because none of the events in the Bible, they happen to regions, but never the whole planet at the same time.
Yeah.
Never.
The only one that probably they mentioned was the flood. That's about it. But that was a region too.
But that was a region. That didn't happen over the whole, not every... When the Bible was written, we didn't even know about North America. We didn't know about the Americas.
Right. You're right. You're right.
So we didn't know those existed.
When you break it down and get the historical pattern,
Right. So there were a lot of people on the planet who were on dry ground whenever the flood happened.
And that's for another show too. We can get real deep into those. I'm really good at that stuff too. So we're running out of time here real quick, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to give some closing statements, something you want to share with everybody before we go back to our isolations.
I think the one thing that I would just reiterate is be easy with yourself and practice the pause and get curious. Those are things to remember. And when I say be easy with yourself, if you're struggling with trauma, be gentle with yourself. And if you don't feel like doing anything, that's okay. Because some days that's what we need. And
Absolutely.
so, and now is a good time to learn not to compare ourselves to other people. Now is a good time really to reflect on, gosh, who do I want to be? Because this might be the best do-over ever, people.
That's a good point.
My goodness, we're getting a do-over.
Awesome.
I can't count the times I've said I want a do-over.
Here we are.
And here we are.
We all manifested it, didn't we?
Yes.
We just manifested a little weird.
Yeah. Well, and
again,
right. And again,
let's all get sick and die.
Without adversity, there is no growth.
This is true.
There isn't. I mean, like,
Right.
we don't learn and we don't grow. If you don't make a mistake, you don't know how to
Mm-hmm.
fix the mistake. So, like, perfection is a myth.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yeah,
Very
it
good.
really is. And I think this is a great opportunity to examine what we value, because what we valued a month ago, we're realizing isn't essential. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's a good point
Like,
too.
it really doesn't matter. I mean, the things that people would run and do to get their nails done or go shopping and buying
Mm-hmm.
clothes and, retail therapy. It's like, we don't have that now. And you know what?
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. And maybe life would be a little bit better with less of it.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
So,
My friend Jennifer Whitacre, guys, and she.
thank you.
I'm glad you came on. I'm glad you
Mhm.
spent some time with me and with everybody who's on the Facebook live feed there. And I hope you
Thank you
join me
for
again.
having me. I
Yeah, yeah,
will.
yeah.
I
I really
will.
enjoyed talking and hanging out with you.
Mhm.
And yeah, just be safe. Stay home.
I am. I am. Although I have to get cat food. My cats are almost completely out. So
Well, you know what I'm saying.
I'm going to have to put on my scuba suit and
All
go to the
right.
grocery store.
Beautiful. I really appreciate you. I really care about you. I'm glad that you were able to spend some time with me, since I know we work together sometimes on some other things, and haven't been able to see you or anybody really in person.
Mhm.
So it's nice to bring my friends to this format and share their insights with us. And that's why my show is part of With Insights Radio, and Iggy Garcia Live is part of that. And I hope to see you soon. And I hope that maybe one day you could have a show on my network. All right.
Okay.
Thank you. We'll see you
Thanks,
soon.
Iggy.
All right. You have a good evening.
Mhm.
All right, everybody. I just want to say thanks to Jennifer for being here with me. And I hope that you got some information, some tidbits out of that. Remember, she's said be curious and hit that pause. That pause is a very powerful tool for us to, just do some reflection in there. And, just be that childlike kid, that not be childish, childlike in your questioning and your curiosity about things, because it's important for us to remember that we still have little children inside of us and they have a lot of questions. And sometimes when we come asking questions, it can come across like a kid asking a question, because we still are just little kids in grown-up suits, and we're trying to grasp all the things that are happening. And we're not going to get it all right, and that's okay, but we're going to do our best. But I have friends like Jennifer, Blue Hawks, some other people were going to come on. Hayden and Kate were on the other day, and Krista was on, and Sammy was on, and Ronnie was on. Other people who've been popping on, and I bringing on. These are people who I work with. These are people I care about, people I love, and people who I cherish very deeply, because they bring to the world something that I can't share with the world. I can share what I can share, and they share what they can share. They share their pieces and their little golden nuggets through me, with me, and together we just make this a better place. So I hope you really truly enjoyed this time. Let us know. Send us a message. Look up Jennifer on Facebook. Friend her. Get some more information from her. And let's do this. Let's just get through this one day at a time. Do what you need to do and be in alignment. Healthy limits and boundaries for yourself. And guys, I will be drumming tomorrow. I promise. I promise that. So with that, I want to say it's good to be here. Ho'oponopono, matakuyasin, ho irisikwi, namaste, all the things that you are in alignment with, the universe, God, whatever it is. And if there's nothing, fine. I want to just say thank you for being people I'm going to bring on, even when this thing's over, we're going to keep doing shows and doing stuff. All right. Peace out, guys. Take care. Much love. Take care. I'll see you guys next.